Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Right.
Think about it for a second. If you, the listener, fall and break your arm, you go to the hospital, they put you under an X-ray machine, and that glowing screen shows a jagged, undeniable white line. The doctor just points to it and says, there it is, that's the break.
Right. It's entirely binary. The bone is broken or it isn't.
Exactly. It's clean, it's objective, and above all, it's comforting. We, as a species, desperately like things to be visible.
Oh, absolutely.
We like our pain to be categorized and easily verifiable by a third party.
Because if it's visible, it can be treated. If you can point to the fracture, you can put cast on it. The anxiety of the unknown is removed.
But then you step out of the physical realm. You step into the world of neurodevelopment, into chronic emotional trauma, into the terrifyingly complex web of romantic pathology, and suddenly that X-ray machine is completely useless. You are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is, well, honestly, it's murky.
Highly subjective.
Right. It's a landscape composed entirely of shadows and subtext. Welcome to Off the Record.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are taking a massive deep dive into what might be the most devastatingly accurate architectural blueprint of human loneliness ever put on screen. We're pulling apart the speculative, romantic, dark comedy, psychological drama. Why are you like this?
And we are not just skimming the surface today. We are going to deconstruct the exact mechanics of how two people can take a shared emotional void and turn it into a literal weapon of mass destruction.
Oh, it really is a weapon.
It is. We're going to look at the biology, the sociology, and the terrifying architecture of codependency.
Yes, because this isn't just a movie about a bad breakup. It is a clinical examination of what happens when two people mistake mutual damage for destiny.
Exactly.
So if you're listening right now, I want you to mentally prepare yourself, because we are going to get into the absolute bedrock of human dysfunction. Let's start by unpacking our two primary subjects.
Let's do it.
First, we have Elliot Gorcey, played by Jason Segel. He's 32 years old, living in Cincinnati, in an apartment that functions essentially as a museum of aborted intentions.
The visual storytelling with Elliot's apartment is intensely specific, and it gives us an immediate psychological profile before he even speaks a single word.
It really does.
The space is cluttered with half-painted fantasy miniatures. There are expensive electronic keyboards that have clearly never been played. But the detail that really strikes me, the one that perfectly encapsulates his pathology, is his bookshelf.
Oh, the bookmarks.
Every single book has a bookmark permanently stalled on page 12.
Page 12. Have you ever did that?
I mean, we all have, but not to this pathological degree.
Right, because it is the exact mathematical point where the dopaminergic novelty of a new endeavor completely wears off, and the actual unglamorous work begins.
Precisely.
That is Eliot's entire psychological profile in a nutshell. He is a man who is deeply in love with the theoretical start of things, but he is completely unequipped for the sustained reality of them. And his internal life is a disaster. He is emotionally intelligent in theory, like he reads the right articles, he knows the terminology, but he's emotionally catastrophic in practice, to the point where he actually apologizes to furniture when he bumps into it.
Which is a fascinating behavioral tick to analyze. If we connect this to the bigger picture of his character, apologizing to an inanimate object isn't just quirkiness.
No, it's sad.
It indicates a central nervous system that constantly perceives itself as a burden. Elliot feels like he is actively intruding on the physical space of the universe.
Wow.
To cope with that immense, crushing guilt of simply existing, he narrates his own failures internally with the timing of a stand-up comic. He uses preemptive self-deprecation as a shield.
Right.
The logic is if he can laugh at his own inadequacy first, he controls the narrative.
It's a brilliant, completely impenetrable defense mechanism. You can't critique a guy who has already written a tighter, funnier critique of himself. And then on the other side of the city, we have Mara Bell, played by Vanessa Bayer, 30 years old. She works at a boutique branding agency.
Oh, her job.
Her literal everyday job description is writing human-centered authenticity for massive, soulless corporations, which has to be the most terrifying oxymoron I've ever heard in my life.
It is weaponized sincerity.
Yes.
Mara spends 40 hours a week manufacturing fake vulnerability to sell running shoes or oat milk. As a result of constantly mining human emotion for capital, she is incredibly charming and fluid in public, but absolutely corrosive in private.
Especially toward herself.
Yes, because when you commodify authenticity, you lose access to your own genuine emotional baseline. You no longer know if you're actually sad or if you're just performing the aesthetic of sadness.
Spot on. Her apartment is the exact stark inverse of Elliot's. It is spotless, it is aggressively, almost clinically curated. Every throw pillow has an agenda.
But the draw.
Right, except for one single drawer in her kitchen, where she aggressively shoves everything that is broken. Shattered ceramic pieces, dead batteries, tangled cords, and she just forcefully closes it and forgets about it.
The metaphor there is practically screaming at us.
It's loud. Furthermore, she keeps voicemails on her phone from people who no longer speak to her. Former best friends, exes. She is essentially curating a museum of ghosts.
She is holding on to the digital residue of relationships because she fundamentally doesn't know how to sustain the actual living relationships. Both Elliot and Mara are walking voids.
Yeah.
They have built entirely different architectures to hide the exact same emptiness.
Which brings us to the meet cute. And for a movie this dark, it is the most perfectly, hilariously dysfunctional meet cute imaginable. They meet at an emergency couples CPR class at a local community center.
Classic setting.
Neither of them is supposed to be there. Elliot is there because he got extremely drunk the night before, thought he was registering for a pottery class, and clicked the wrong community center ad online. And Mara is there because her coworker bailed on her. And out of sheer, unadulterated spite, she refuses to let the $50 prepaid registration fee go to waste.
Spite and apathy, the twin killers of modern romance.
Exactly. So the instructor pairs them up for a practice exercise on one of those plastic Rasuchian dummies. And Elliot, in his clumsy, deeply self-conscious panic because he knows he's out of place, and he feels Mara's intense, judgmental energy.
He feels it radiating off her.
Yeah. He pushes entirely too hard during the chest compressions. He loses his balance, his hand slips, and he violently breaks the dummy's plastic jaw completely off. It just snaps and clatters to the floor.
And this is where the dynamic locks into place. Most people in that situation would offer a polite, socially acceptable chuckle to ease the tension.
Or be horrified.
Right. Mara doesn't do that. She laughs a violent, involuntary laugh, a laugh from the gut that actually brings her to tears. It's the kind of laughter that only happens when you experience sudden, absolute, uncensored recognition.
I have a theory about this exact moment, and I want to know if you think this holds up psychologically.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the framing here. Breaking that optimistic dummy's jaw is the perfect, terrifying metaphor for their entire future marriage. Look at the context. They are standing in a classroom designed entirely to teach you how to save a life.
Right.
And instead of participating in that life-saving narrative, Elliot violently shatters this hollow plastic shell of a human. Mara looks at that destruction, that catastrophic failure to save a life, and she mistakes this shared chaos for a romantic spark. Does that moment right there set the biological precedent for their entire trauma bond?
I think your theory is completely accurate. It is the foundational flaw of their entire dynamic, and we can break down exactly why that happens. In psychology, a trauma bond isn't just about sharing a sad story. It's a hormonal cycle. It's driven by intense spikes of cortisol, which is stress, followed by the dopamine relief of a shared resolution. When Elliot breaks the dummy, there is a massive spike of social stress. Mara's laugh provides the dopamine relief. For the very first time in years, perhaps in their entire adult lives, both of them feel truly visible to another human being. But what are they seeing? They aren't seeing each other's strengths or their values or their capacity for care.
Well,
They are seeing each other's catastrophic dysfunction, and they feel a profound sense of relief. It establishes a highly dangerous precedent where damage becomes synonymous with intimacy. If you only feel seen when you are failing, you will subconsciously manufacture failure just to maintain the romantic connection.
that is, wow. That is incredibly bleak. But it makes perfect sense. You know, we are going to be getting into some incredibly heavy, dark territory as we track the 7 years of this relationship.
It gets much darker.
And honestly, just analyzing the baseline psychology of these two is already a little exhausting. I actually brought a bottle of red wine into the studio for this deep dive. I'm pouring us both a glass right now.
Oh, well, look at that.
I feel like we needed to get through the architecture of this tragedy.
I think a glass of wine is entirely appropriate given the density of what we're about to dissect. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay, let's take a breath and move into the first act of the relationship, the fast fall. And For you listening, if you've ever been in a relationship that moved at light speed, this is going to sound eerily familiar because it is frighteningly fast.
It plays out almost like a manic fantasy sequence. Within weeks, they develop that highly specific, private, exclusionary language that deeply enmeshed couples have. You know, the type they can communicate incredibly complex arguments or judgments entirely through a micro-expression or eye contact from across a crowded restaurant.
Which feels so unbelievably romantic when you're inside it, doesn't it?
Oh.
It feels like magic. But from the outside, it is a closed loop. It's an exclusionary zone.
Yes, completely.
Elliot absolutely adores Mara's brutal honesty because he hates himself, so her cruelty feels like a comfortable truth to him. And Mara adores Elliot's emotional transparency because she is entirely closed off and numb, so she effectively outsources all of her emotional labor to him.
She uses him to feel things so she doesn't have to.
Yes, they are perfectly interlocking neuroses.
It's like two jagged puzzle pieces fitting together. And the film makes a very sharp, deliberate point here about how quickly clinical dysfunction can masquerade as destiny. Within a month, they start sleeping on FaceTime when they are physically apart, just leaving the cameras running in the dark.
That is intense.
They stop maintaining separate friendships entirely. They cancel plans to just stay in bed and analyze other people's flaws.
Yes. Their favorite phrase, the absolute mantra of their relationship becomes, "Nobody gets me except you." They say it to each other constantly, like a prayer.
Which is one of the most toxic things a couple can build their foundation upon. Nobody gets me except you sounds like a profound romantic compliment, but if we analyze it, it is actually a declaration of isolation.
Really?
Yes, it means you are actively cutting off the rest of the world. You are placing the entire burden of your existence, your validation, and your social reality onto the shoulders of one single person.
At first, their extended friend group finds it adorable. It's that early honeymoon phase where everyone at the bar says, "Oh, look at Elliot and Mara. They're so obsessed with each other. It's so cute."
But that fades.
Very quickly, the friends start finding it alarming. There's this incredible tense scene at a dinner party where Elliot literally disappears midway through a conversation with a guy about a movie. He just stops speaking mid-sentence, walks out of the room, and goes to the kitchen. Entirely because he noticed that Mara's posture looked vaguely stiff from 40 feet away across the house.
He is hyper-vigilant to her emotional state. His nervous system is completely calibrated to her slightest fluctuations. And one of their friends makes a brilliant observation. He jokes that Elliot and Mara are emotionally in escrow.
I love that line so much. It's such a specific, weird burn.
It's conceptually brilliant. Think about what being in escrow means in real estate. It means your assets, your funds, are completely frozen by a third party until a transaction is finalized. You can't touch them.
Oh, that's good.
The friend is observing that Elliot and Mara have frozen all of their emotional assets, all of their available empathy, their social energy, their curiosity, and locked it exclusively into each other. Nobody else in the world has access to them anymore.
The broader social economy of their lives has collapsed.
And the chilling part is, nobody at the dinner party laughs at the joke, except Elliot and Mara.
Because they think it's a badge of honor. They think being in escrow is the goal, which leads us, inevitably, to the wedding. Barely a year in, they get married.
Right.
And they decide to hold the ceremony in a defunct, abandoned 1970s planetarium on the edge of the city, which is, very indie movie chic on the surface, but also a massive, glaring architectural foreshadowing of the isolation they are building.
The planetarium.
Think about what a planetarium actually is. It is literally a closed dome where you shut out the real sky and you project an artificial controllable universe onto the ceiling to look at in the dark.
That metaphor is structurally perfect, and the vows they exchange under that artificial sky are the thesis statement of their shared pathology. Mara stands at the altar and says, "Before you, I always felt like I was performing personhood."
God, that line. It hits so hard.
It's devastating. And Elliot responds to that by looking at her and saying, "You make me feel observable," and all the guests at the wedding, the few that are left, start weeping.
Look, I'm taking another sip of wine here because I have to admit something.
Go ahead.
I would cry at that wedding. It sounds beautiful. It really.
Of course it sounds beautiful. The language of codependency is often incredibly poetic. But what's fascinating and deeply tragic is why everyone is crying. Society has this deeply ingrained, fatal flaw where we consistently mistake intensity for health.
We really do.
We hear a groom say, "You make me feel observable," and we think it's the pinnacle of romantic achievement. We have been conditioned by centuries of literature and media to believe that love is supposed to be this all-consuming, microscopic surveillance of the soul.
Okay, but let me push back on this a little bit. Because as I'm sitting here, drinking this, quite frankly, excellent Pinot Noir, I have to confess, I find the idea of being completely observable incredibly intoxicating. I really do, don't you?
Well,
I mean, think about the listener's life or our lives. Most of the time, we're just walking around the city doing our mundane little tasks, sending our endless little emails, putting our groceries on the conveyor belt, and nobody is really looking at us. We are profoundly anonymous.
that's true.
The idea that someone could just perceive you entirely without you having to explain yourself, it's the absolute dream, isn't it? Have you honestly never felt that deep craving to be completely perceived by someone?
I think every human being inherently desires to be understood. That is a baseline psychological need. But there is a fundamental difference between being understood, which requires empathy and space, and being placed under a microscope, which is what observable implies.
See, I don't know if I agree with that distinction. In my last long-term relationship, I felt so incredibly invisible by the end of it that I think I would have welcomed the microscope, honestly.
Oh, really?
I would have welcomed the Spanish Inquisition if it meant my partner was actually paying attention to what I was feeling. You just get so desperately tired of waving your arms around in your own living room, metaphorically speaking, trying to prove to the person on the couch that you actually exist.
Right, yeah, I hear that.
So when Elliot says, "You make me feel observable," part of me is like, yes, give me that. Give me the spotlight. Turn the high beams on me.
But you have to look at the cost of that spotlight, which is exactly what the film goes on to show us. Being observable is safe only when the person observing you is entirely benevolent and emotionally regulated.
Okay.
But when you give an emotionally volatile, deeply insecure person the power of total observation, you aren't just giving them a spotlight. You are handing them the exact high-resolution coordinates needed to dismantle you. You are giving them a map of your deepest insecurities.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. That is a very sobering thought. Actually, let's pour another glass.
Yeah.
Because we're moving into year 3. The film divides the marriage into 7 chapters, one for each year.
Yes.
And as we enter year 3, the space becomes incrementally more claustrophobic. And here is where the speculative element of the deep dive, the magical realism or the sci-fi element starts to creep in.
Yeah.
And it is so subtle at first, you almost think you're imagining it.
The physical residue of their arguments.
Yeah.
This is the pivot point. This is where the film transitions from a standard, albeit dark, domestic drama into something entirely different and genre-defying.
It's incredible. Every time they have an argument at home, it leaves behind an actual physical and impossible anomaly. So they have this passive-aggressive exchange in the kitchen about who is supposed to buy groceries, standard irritating domestic bickering.
Right.
But after the argument finishes, after they walk away, a normal plastic magnet on the refrigerator literally liquefies. It turns into this thick, black, viscous sludge and slowly slides down the stainless steel door.
And it escalates. During their prolonged, cold silences, those scenes where they just walk past each other without speaking, heavy dripping condensation starts forming on the interior walls of the apartment.
Oh,
Even when the weather outside is completely dry and the humidity is 0, the house is physically sweating out their unexpressed tension.
Okay, but wait. The one that gets me, the one that I absolutely cannot stop thinking about, and I need you to explain the mechanics of this to me because I am obsessed with it, is the house plants.
Ah, yes. The house plants.
Elliot silently resents Mara for interrupting him at a party. He doesn't say a single word about it. He just stews in it. He sits on the couch boiling with unspoken resentment. And for the next 3 days, all the houseplants in the apartment physically tilt away from him.
They do.
Like he walks into the living room and the ferns just aggressively lean toward the window to get away from his vibe. I find this so fucking funny. I really do. Are the ferns judging him? I need to know the physics of the judgmental ferns. Please explain this to me.
Well, if we look at it through the internal logic of the film's speculative premise, the plants are reacting to the sheer toxicity of his suppressed emotion. If we view the apartment as an emotional seismograph, the plants are the most sensitive biological instruments in that environment.
Right, because they're alive.
They are living entities, and they are instinctively rejecting the emotional radiation he is emitting. Just as a plant bends towards sunlight for photosynthesis, these plants are bending away from his emotional black hole to survive.
It's just, I can't stop picturing Jason Segel trying to water a ficus. And the ficus is just like, don't touch me, Elliot. I saw how you acted at the dinner party. I know what you are. It's brilliant visual comedy.
It is very funny.
But the truly terrifying part is that neither Elliot nor Mara ever acknowledges this happening. They see the black sludge on the fridge. They see the sweat on the walls. They see the plants acting like they're in a hurricane, and they completely ignore it. They wipe up the sludge with paper towel and don't say a word.
Because to acknowledge the physical manifestation of the rot would require them to admit that something is fundamentally, irreparably broken in their dynamic. Denial is the only way the system survives.
Wow.
If you acknowledge the impossible sludge, you have to acknowledge the impossible toxicity creating it.
So by year 3, we are in what the film explicitly calls the microscopic wars. The romance has completely curdled like bad milk. It is no longer a relationship. It's behavioral archaeology. They aren't fighting about who left the dishes in the sink anymore. They are fighting about the deep historical implications of the dishes.
Which, clinically speaking, is the death knell of a relationship. When an argument stops being about the present action and becomes an indictment of the person's entire character, you are in the final stages.
Yeah.
Elliot develops these highly manipulative habits, but they are so deeply ingrained in his psyche that he doesn't even consciously realize he's doing it. He sighs theatrically when he enters a room. He frames his sharpest criticisms of Mara as concern for her mental well-being. He completely weaponizes his own vulnerability.
This is the part of the movie that hits so close to home, it's uncomfortable. Mara tells him, just very calmly, I need some space this weekend. And Elliot's response, and Segel delivers this with such devastating puppy dog sincerity, he doesn't get angry. He just quietly looks down and goes, that's okay. I'm used to being too much for people.
It is an absolute masterclass in emotional manipulation. It aligns perfectly with the Cartman drama triangle, where an individual shifts seamlessly from the role of victim to persecutor.
It is so fucked up. Because what is she supposed to do with that? If she takes the healthy space she needs, she is instantly confirming his deepest, most vocalized trauma, that he is a burden, that he is too much, and she instantly becomes the villain abandoning the sad, broken man.
Yes.
He forces her into a caretaker mode. He traps her using his own fragility as the cage.
Exactly.
Yes.
His terror of abandonment mutates into this inescapable emotional gravity. He isn't a mustache-twirling villain plotting her demise. He's just a man whose fragility is so immense, so dense, that the physical and emotional geometry of every room literally bends around it.
And Mara's response to this gravity isn't to leave, which a healthy person would do. Her response is to adapt. And she adapts by becoming a surgeon, a very cold, very cruel surgeon.
She meticulously maps out the exact topography of his insecurities over the years.
She knows exactly where every single exposed nerve is. If Elliot is feeling proud of a new creative project, like say he finally got past page 12 of a novel he's writing, and he's excited, she doesn't yell at him. She doesn't tell him it's bad.
No, she's much more subtle.
She just drops a single, completely calm, harmless hunting question while making coffee. And she looks at him and says, do you think maybe you're hiding behind irony again?
It's a surgical, tactical strike.
It completely destroys him. That one sentence ruins his entire week. It makes him question his entire artistic identity, his worth, everything. And Vanessa Bayer plays this so remarkably well. It isn't explosive anger. She's not screaming. It's just these tiny, accumulated, microscopic resentments that she has patiently sharpened into a scalpel over 3 years.
What we are watching here is a cautionary horror story about knowing someone too well. We talked earlier about the desire to be observable. Well, this is the flip side.
Right.
When you merge your identities to this extreme degree, you hand the other person the exact nuclear launch codes to your self-esteem. You trust them not to use them. But when the resentment inevitably builds because the enmeshment is suffocating, they will turn the key.
Man. Okay, pouring another glass. I'm topping us both off. This is getting heavy, and we are only in year 4. By year 4, the physical space of the house goes from subtly weird, like the plants and the sludge, to just objectively terrifyingly wrong.
The architecture itself completely destabilizes. The environment reflects the psychological collapse.
The rooms rearrange themselves overnight, which, can we just pause and appreciate how profoundly disorienting that would be? You wake up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom is now at the end of a long, dark corridor that literally wasn't there yesterday.
It's nightmare logic.
And the hallways actually lengthen while they're having arguments.
Yeah.
As the emotional distance between them grows in real time, the physical distance of the floorboards stretches out.
But the most profound manifestation in the house, and this is where I think the screenwriting elevates to absolute genius, is the smoke detector in the hallway.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
The smoke detector. I think about this scene constantly. The smoke detector starts speaking to them. But it's not speaking in full coherent sentences, and it doesn't sound like a robot.
No.
It speaks in distorted, echoing fragments of conversations they've had in the past. But the truly chilling part, the part that makes it a masterpiece of horror, is that it speaks the subtext of the conversations, not the actual words they used.
It acts as an omniscient translator. It extracts the unspoken emotional subtext that they were too cowardly to say, and it plays it aloud for both of them to hear.
Yes.
So they have a mundane argument about laundry, but Elliot hears the smoke detector hiss, "I never said you were impossible to love."
And Mara, standing in the exact same hallway, hears it whisper, "You always do this when I'm happy."
And neither of those sentences had ever been spoken aloud in their entire marriage. It is the purest distillation of their suppressed animosity.
It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
It is just, I'm getting heated just thinking about it. This is the greatest writing. It's so profound. Think about your own life, listener.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many arguments you've had where the actual words coming out of your mouth are about, like, who forgot to take out the recycling? But the screaming subtext in your brain is, you always do this when I'm happy. To have the actual plaster and plastic of your house literally scream your ugliest subtext back at you.
Oh.
I would lose my goddamn mind. I would burn the house down.
It strips away all plausible deniability. You can no longer hide behind semantics. You can no longer say, "I didn't mean it that way." The house is acting as an omniscient, objective narrator of their dysfunction. They can't lie to themselves anymore.
So they try therapy. Because what else do you do when your house is gaslighting you with the truth? Naturally, they go to couples counseling. But they've become so emotionally radioactive that their dysfunction is actually contagious.
Contagious is the perfect word.
The therapists start breaking down. One therapist, this highly trained professional, literally just starts violently crying halfway through their second session, and she doesn't even know why she's crying. She just sobs into her hands. The sheer density of Elliot and Mara's toxic enmeshment just overwhelms the therapist's central nervous system.
And it bleeds out into the waiting room. It becomes an EMP for romance. Another couple, presumably there for their own mild, manageable issues, sits near Elliot and Mara for 20 minutes while waiting for an appointment, and they spontaneously break up.
That part is so wild.
The ambient radiation of Elliot and Mara's failed fusion just triggers everyone else's latent insecurities.
It's like they're a walking, talking nuclear disaster.
Yeah.
They generate a metaphysical field that amplifies everything bad. But the insane paradox is they're destroying everything around them. They're destroying strangers in waiting rooms, but they cannot separate from each other. Whenever they try to take a break, reality completely breaks down.
They attempt a trial separation, which is the logical next step. Elliot packs a bag and moves into an extended stay hotel across town. But the hotel building loses power every single night at exactly 2:13 a.m.
Which is the exact minute Mara usually fell asleep next to him for the past 5 years.
And Mara, back in their now warped apartment, starts hearing phantom noises. She clearly hears Elliot brushing his teeth in the bathroom, the exact rhythm of his toothbrush, even though she is completely alone in the house.
It's not just auditory hallucinations, though. It gets somatic. Their biological bodies start mirroring each other across the city. Elliot trips on a curb and sprains his hand, and miles away, Mara instantly develops this unexplained, agonizing wrist pain.
Right.
Mara gets severe laryngitis, and Elliot completely loses his voice in the middle of a meeting. And the doctors can't find anything medically wrong with either of them.
The film leaves it ambiguous for a while. We as the audience have to ask, is it supernatural? Is it a psychosomatic manifestation of severe clinical codependency? Or is it purely symbolic, a literary device?
Wait, what do you mean symbolic? The guy lost his actual voice. He was pantomiming.
I mean that in a literary sense, the film might be using these physical impossibilities to symbolize the complete loss of individual autonomy. When you are that enmeshed, you literally feel the other person's pain. The director just making that emotional truth literal.
Okay, sure, the director's being artsy, but within the world of the movie, it feels so overwhelmingly real, it simply becomes true for them. They cannot exist apart. The universe won't let them. Which brings us to year 6, the erosion. And this leads to what is arguably the most devastating, excruciating scene in the entire movie.
A Target trip.
The Target trip, oh my God. By year 6, their friends have completely abandoned them. Nobody calls, nobody invites them to birthdays or dinners, because being around them is like standing near an exposed reactor core leak.
Exactly.
So it's just the two of them, constantly. And they are at target. Just a giant, fluorescently lit target. And they spend 14 uninterrupted minutes of screen time arguing in the dental care aisle about toothpaste.
Because, as we established earlier, it isn't about toothpaste. It is never about toothpaste. Every single option on the shelf whitening, tartar control, sensitive becomes a proxy war about their identities, their memories, and their accumulated disappointments. It's the paradox of choice weaponized into relationship trauma.
14 minutes.
Yeah.
It's shot in this agonizing single take. And they aren't yelling. That's the terrifying part. I think if they were yelling, it would be easier to watch. They're using these incredibly calm, hushed, lethal indoor voices. Mara just looks at him in the middle of this aisle, holding a tube of Crest, and quietly says, "You turn every neutral thing into proof that I hate you."
And Elliot responds without missing a beat, without raising his voice, because he usually do.
Jesus.
It's the utter hollow resignation in that exchange that makes it so dark. That is simply how they speak to each other now. The baseline of their communication is assumed hostility. They expect the worst from each other, and they always deliver.
You know, I have to... Okay, wait. I need to take a breath. We need to be professional here. I need to reset this deep dive. Let's reset. We are getting off track. We need to stay focused on the film's narrative structure.
I think we are on the film. We are literally analyzing the Target scene right now.
I know we are, but just talking about this, the grocery store fight, it's so incredibly triggering. I'm sorry, I really need to say this. I once had a fight in the pasta aisle of a Whole Foods with my ex that lasted for 45 minutes.
Wow, okay.
45 actual minutes about whether we were going to buy the fusilli or the penne. And it wasn't about the pasta, obviously. It was about the fact that he never wanted to go to my sister's wedding, and I felt like he completely disrespected my family.
Right, the subtext again.
But we couldn't say that because we were cowards, so we just stood there in the middle of aisle 4, literally crying over a box of organic fusilli.
Yeah.
And I look back on that and I just think, what the fuck were we doing? Why did we do that to each other? Why didn't we just break up?
Hey, it's okay. Listen to me. Listen. That is the tragedy of the human condition. We project our deepest, most terrifying, unarticulated grief onto the mundane.
We do.
Onto pasta, onto toothpaste, because confronting the grief directly feels like it will literally kill us. You weren't crazy. You were just trying to survive the aisle.
I just wanted the fusilli. It holds the sauce better.
I know you did. The spirals hold the pesto. And you deserved the fusilli. You deserve someone who would just buy the fusilli with me.
Thank you. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, this wine is really hitting me now.
Yeah.
I think I poured a very heavy second glass. Let's wait, what were we talking about? The movie.
Okay.
The Target scene. No, we did that. The discovery, the archives. Let's get into the journals. We need to move the timeline forward.
Right, the archives. So, late in the film, after the Target incident, Mara is digging through some boxes in the warped hallway, and she finds these old journals from the very beginning of their relationship.
The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, the cute phase. And she reads them, and the entries are euphoric. They are obsessive, almost religious in their fervor about how perfect they are for each other.
But there is one specific line. One very specific, weird line that appears over and over again in both of their journals. And the incredibly creepy thing is, neither of them remembers writing it. The line is, "Love is easiest before observation collapses it."
Love is easiest before observation collapses it.
God, say it again. It's so fucking good. It's like poetry.
Love is easiest before observation collapses it. It's quantum physics applied to romance. It's essentially the observer effect.
Explain that for the listener, the observer effect.
In quantum mechanics, the mere act of observing a phenomenon changes the phenomenon. A particle exists in a state of infinite possibility until you look at it, and then it collapses into a single defined state.
It changes it, yes. Because as soon as you truly look at a relationship, as soon as you put it under that microscope we talked about earlier, it stops being this infinite, beautiful possibility of what it could be, and it rapidly collapses into a single, flawed, disappointing reality. So Maura reads this quantum physics poetry in her own handwriting, and she goes full detective mode. She goes back to the abandoned planetarium where they got married years ago. And what does she find underneath the floorboards?
She breaks in, and she finds an archive. A dusty, forgotten psychological research archive from the 1970s.
A 1970s cult science archive. It turns out scientists were using the planetarium to study what they called identity fusion events.
This is where my previous theory about it being purely symbolic goes completely out the fucking window.
Wait, really?
Mm.
You're flipping. You, the great academic, are abandoning your symbolic theory.
I am absolutely flipping. I am contradicting myself right now because the evidence in the text is undeniable. The house isn't a metaphor. The supernatural element is completely real. It is literal.
It is.
The 1970s scientists theorized that prolonged, intense, inescapable mutual observation between two emotionally dependent individuals could literally cause their personalities, their physical reality, to collapse into a single, closed emotional system. An identity fusion event.
An identity fusion event. Say it again. I love how that sounds.
Identity fusion event. It's clinical and terrifying.
It explains absolutely everything. It's not a metaphor about codependency. The house is a fucking monster.
Yeah.
And they fed it. They fed it with their trauma.
The 1970s experiment was completely shut down by the government because the test subjects started developing shared, localized hallucinations. They developed synchronized nervous system disorders, exactly what Elliot and Mara are experiencing with the phantom teeth brushing and the mirrored sprained wrists. The science proves it.
And the researchers, don't forget the researchers, the married couple who ran the planetarium experiment, they literally died holding each other inside a flooded observation chamber because they fused too hard.
Exactly. Because the fusion event became so incredibly dense, so gravitationally heavy, that it physically altered the environment and destroyed them. Elliot, of course, tries to dismiss all of this as a wild coincidence when Mara tells him. He tries to gaslight her. But Mara realizes the absolute truth. Their marriage has become a self-sustaining organism.
It's alive. The marriage is a literal parasite living in the walls.
It is preserving itself through them. Their love doesn't serve them as individuals anymore. They are just the biological batteries powering the fusion event. They are just food for the house.
I mean, honestly, if we had an identity fusion event, I wouldn't even be mad about it.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I'm just saying, you and me,
Yeah.
right now, if our nervous system synchronized over this microphone and the studio ceiling started raining black sludge, be like, cool. This is fine. I'd fuse with you. You're very smart. You have a great voice.
Well, thank you. I am flattered. Though I think we are already experiencing a mild conversational fusion event right now, to be honest. The wine is definitely helping the fusion.
We are. We really are. We're fusing. Oh, man. Okay, wait. Focus.
Yeah.
We have to get to the final act, the flooding, the climax of the film.
Right. The final act is it is surreal. And it is devastatingly sad. Because the house, the organism, begins to actively, physically resist them trying to separate. It fights back.
They finally decide to divorce, they try to hire movers, and the front doors literally jam shut. The wood swells. The cell phones physically distort their voices when they try to talk about divorce logistics, turning their words into static. Notes that they write to each other on the fridge change words overnight.
It's terrifying.
And the wildest part, during a huge argument in the bedroom, they look in the mirror and their reflections are delayed by a full 3 seconds.
The physical universe is refusing to cooperate with their separation. The fusion event is protecting itself.
But the thing that absolutely breaks my heart, the thing that makes this movie a masterpiece tragedy instead of just a standard sci-fi horror movie, is that through all of the supernatural chaos, through all the toxicity and the black sludge and the yelling, there is still this unbearable tenderness between them.
Yes, that is the core of it.
Like, there's a scene where the house is literally shaking, books are flying off the shelves, and Elliot is just sitting on the floor rubbing Mara's feet while she is sobbing from sheer emotional exhaustion. Mara stays awake all night sitting next to Elliot while he has a massive hyperventilating panic attack because the walls are bleeding. They still have these shared inside jokes that land perfectly amidst the apocalypse. They genuinely, deeply love each other.
But love isn't enough. That is the hardest, most brutal lesson of human existence. Love is entirely insufficient to sustain a life if the structure built around that love is fundamentally poisonous.
Love simply stopped being enough like 4 years ago for them. So Mara reaches her absolute breaking point. She tells him she is leaving permanently. She is going to break a window and climb out if she has to. And she doesn't do it out of anger. She tells him, with this dead-eyed clarity, I don't remember who I am when you aren't reacting to me.
Because she has been performing for his observation for 7 years, she has no internal compass anymore.
And Elliot spirals, right? He does the whole pathetic routine. The manipulation, the guilt trip, the I'm too much for you, I'm a monster, leave me to die self-victimization. But Mara doesn't take the bait this time. She doesn't become the cruel surgeon. She just looks at him, exhausted, and delivers the most devastating line of the film.
I think we've been confusing surveillance for intimacy.
Oh, God. confusing surveillance for intimacy.
It destroys him. You can see it in Siegel's eyes.
Yeah.
Because it is the absolute truth. They haven't been loving each other. They've just been watching each other die.
And the moment she says it, the moment she truly internally breaks the emotional loop, the house starts violently collapsing inward. The walls buckle. The pipes burst and start pouring that thick black water everywhere. Rooms just start blinking out of existence, turning into white voids. The home cannot sustain its physical form if the relationship powering it ends.
And in the middle of this chaos, this literal flood, Elliot finally understands. He realizes that their dependency is what has been feeding the phenomenon, not their love, their fear.
So they end up back at the planetarium. The physical space folds, and they are suddenly in the flooded planetarium from the 1970s experiment. The emergency alarms are blaring, the projected stars on the ceiling are short-circuiting and sparking overhead. The water is rapidly rising up to their chests, and for the very first time in the entire film, they speak to each other without strategy. No subtext, no manipulation, just truth.
Elliot admits his core flaw. He admits that he turned his vulnerability into a mandatory obligation for her to fulfill. He weaponized his sadness.
And Mara admits hers. She admits that she stayed with him all these years because being needed by a completely broken man felt so much safer than actually allowing herself to be known by a healthy one.
They finally see each other, not through a microscope, not as a renovation project, just as two desperately flawed people.
And they hold each other, mournfully, in the freezing water, as the artificial stars die out one by one above them. And then they do it.
They let each other leave.
Emotionally, they drop the rope. And the second they do, the second they stop pulling, the building just stops shaking. The supernatural bond completely dissipates. The water immediately stops rising. The silence that follows is just terrifyingly ordinary.
The spell is broken. The fusion event has collapsed. Science wins.
Wait, what was it? Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm getting really emotional right now, literally tearing up. So they just drop the rope, and the world stops ending. Is it really that fucking simple? You just stop holding on and the monster dies. All you have to do is let go.
It is the simplest and the most impossibly difficult thing a human being can do. To willingly let go of the thing that has defined your entire reality, even if you know that reality was destroying you. You just drop the rope.
Oh, man. Okay. Wow. We're at the end. The outro. The pharmacy scene. God, my head is spinning right now.
We jump forward. Months later, the academic structure of our analysis is entirely dead, by the way. I don't even know what segment we are on. I think we are just two people in a room drinking wine now.
It feels like we're at a dive bar at 3 a.m., and they're sweeping the floors around us. I love it. I love you, by the way. You are so insightful.
I love you, too. You're brilliant. Drink your wine. Let's finish the story for the listener.
Okay. Months later, Elliot is living in a much smaller, normal apartment. And he is doing something amazing. He is starting conversations with the barista without rehearsing them first in his head.
He is allowing himself to exist in the world without preemptive defense mechanisms. He is just being.
And Mara is working freelance in a different city. She quit the awful corporate authenticity job. She's at a convenience store, and a cashier makes a really dumb joke, and she laughs spontaneously without analyzing it or weaponizing it. And she actually looks surprised by her own laugh because it's real. Neither of them is magically healed, right? They still have baggage, but they are lighter. They have 3 dimensions again.
And then the final scene, they accidentally bump into each other.
At a pharmacy, a literal pharmacy, where you go to get medicine to heal. The symbolism is so heavy, but I don't even care.
Exactly. But there is no swelling romantic music. There is no dramatic reconciliation where they run into each other's arms in slow motion. There are just two people standing near the greeting cards who once mistook mutual incompleteness for fate.
They speak so kindly to each other, but it's awkward. It's the profound awkwardness of two people who used to literally share a nervous system and are now just strangers with heavy memories. And right before they part ways to go to the registers, Mara looks at him. She's almost smiling. And she asks him the title of the movie.
So why are you like this?
And Elliot laughs. And for the very first time in the entire film, his laugh doesn't sound wounded. It doesn't sound like a shield. It just sounds like a guy. Cut to black.
It's a perfect ending. It really is.
It really is. God, what a ride. Listener, you listening to us ramble right now, if you're still with us, pull up a stool. I don't even know how to sign off normally anymore. The format of the show is completely gone. But I just keep thinking about that flooded chamber, the water rising up to their necks. And I guess I just want to ask you, listener, do you need to let your own relationship flood a little bit, just to see if you're actually swimming together or if you're just drowning each other?
That's a profoundly good question. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I love you, listener. We love you. Drink some water.
We do. Take care of yourselves out there. Drop the rope if you have to. Good night.
Mic's off. We're done. Where's the rest of the wine?